to Revolution Report, the show that highlights pressing issues, uplifts community voices, and questions the status quo. I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh.
And I'm Analisa Venolia.
We felt the need to dive deeper into societal problems and explore subjects from diverse perspectives. So join us in the revolution. This episode, we're going to be talking about intersectional feminism.
Intersectional feminism is an approach to feminism that takes into account how the intersections of a woman's identity affect the way she experiences discrimination. For example, although women as a whole are paid less than men, Black women and Hispanic women are paid less than their white female counterparts.
Intersectional feminism provides an alternative approach to feminism than white feminism, which overlooks and overshadows the experiences and struggles of women of color, LGBT women, disabled women, and women of other minority groups. A classic example of this is the statement, "Women got the right to vote in 1920. White women got the right to vote in 1920, but this ignores the reality that women of color didn't get the right to vote until much later. Some Indigenous women were barred from voting as late as 1964. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 then opened doors, and it wasn't until 1975 that discrimination against people who rely on languages other than English was prohibited. And things still aren't perfect today. Depending on where you live, certain laws targeting communities of color may affect voting access.
Absolute icon and law professor at UCLA and Columbia, Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectional feminism in the 80s. She describes it as a prism for seeing the way in which various forms of inequality often operate together and exacerbate each other. She also stated, all inequality is not created equal. We tend to talk about race inequality as separate from inequality based on gender, class, sexuality, or immigrant status. What's often missing is how some people are subject to all of these, and the experience is not just the sum of its parts.
As two women who are racialized as white, regardless of our cultural backgrounds, we recognize that it's important to platform women of color's voices in discussions about intersectional feminism. So we sat down with community member and voice actor Olivia Daniels to get her perspective as a Black woman.
Let's dive right in. So we are here with Olivia, who's going to talk to us about intersectional feminism today. Olivia, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
So what we wanted to start this interview off with is asking you, what is your definition of feminism?
My definition of feminism, to me, I feel like feminism allows for women and men to be seen as equal. And I don't want any career path or decision that a woman makes question their femininity, but also just their ability and presentfulness of what a woman is, because a woman can be anything from housewife to career woman to anything. Like, a woman to me can do anything that their heart desires, and I feel like there's such a strong connection within. There's no single identification of one woman, because a woman is everything and anything she can be.
That was amazing.
And I love how you got a little bit into gender roles with that. You're there is no one single thing that a woman is. You just have to say you're a woman and you're a woman.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very unapologetic.
Thank you, Olivia.
Now,
Sure.
to add to that first question, what is intersectional feminism to you?
Now, intersectional feminism, I believe that all women of all factors are included. And this could be because of a woman's race, a woman's gender identity, sexual identity, disabled or abled body. I feel like every woman should be in the conversation when certain topics are at hand. I unfortunately don't like the idea that we have to bring up certain ideas to be seen, but that is a reality, because some women can't imagine what it's like to be a different color or have limitations to their abilities or how they present themselves without being questioned or deterred and discriminated against. So for intersectional feminism, it's allowing all types of women to have the space to discuss these issues and, yes, together to form feminism because all for one and one for all.
Absolutely. I love that. And so, why do you feel that this kind of feminism is important for people to adopt? You kind of touched on that already, but like if you could expand on that.
So expanding it, I believe that unfortunately we will not none of us will all understand what it's like to be a certain thing. And with intersectional feminism, for us to listen to each woman from different backgrounds, it can really create more empathy and understanding within these groups. And I feel like because society has put in a individualism mindset that it's all for me and what is it, what's the word, what does this have to do with me, I feel like is very dangerous to say because everything that you do or say will affect you in the long term. And to not really allow these conversations to have or even take in consideration of certain women's traits, it kind of makes you wonder like, we're all women. We all experience things the same. It's like technically yes, but not in like not fully because there are a lot of factors in place that women don't really have the grasp on, which I'm not saying they can't learn from it, but it's more like take in consideration that yes, you are a woman, you will face struggles and obstacles in your life, but it is very different for a Black woman to face it. It is very different for a disabled woman to face it. It's very different for women of different facets because once again, there's so much isms that are rooted deep down that just unfortunately make it more harder for them to expand. And by adopting into intersectional feminism, I just believe it'll allow for us to be more like empathetic and understanding and very encouraging to uplift those voices and also like treat everybody the same way you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I agree with that. Now, you touched on individualism, which I was very excited about. Well, not excited about the concept, but excited that you brought it up.
Mm.
I want to know your opinion on individualism, on how that may block people from seeing different perspectives.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't like this when it comes to individualism because we've seen this with Roe v. Wade. I remember seeing a lot of women definitely devastated about their loss of access to abortions, and you would see a lot of white women kind of not really seeing the big idea about it until it happened to them, and then now it kind of became their own personal issue to deal with. And that's the thing I don't like about individualism is that the mindset of how does this affect me or it doesn't involve me so why should it matter to me type of mindset. It's like these things happen because of that mindset because you think you're invincible by these practices that go on. And I feel like you really have to be careful when you like have that individual mindset because then it could lead to you finally being in that position. And now what are you going to do? Because now you're just in the same pool as everybody else who couldn't have access to certain things are now. And I want all of us to really like understand that community is so important and to have other people to rely upon and to uplift you is so crucial. And I feel like for everybody to say that nobody deserves anything or no one owes you anything and I'm the only thing that matters is like it's just not good at all. And I could feel like it leads to more loneliness within individuals to not really see that it does affect you in a way. And it's important for them to really seek the mindset that I have to say something because I can't be alone in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one thing that folks may not understand some of the time is that community is ever changing. You may be one thing one day, and in a maybe 20 years, you may not be able to do that thing. You may be a part of a different community.
That's true. Yeah, that's something that like is really under discussed that you're touching on, I think, which is that especially as we age, more and more people become a member of the disabled community, and you are literally like not able to do the things that you once were, and yet that's neglected to talk about when we talk about disability rights and things like that. There is a huge disabled population that just gets left out of conversations of activism and things like that, despite the fact that as we all age, everyone's gonna like
Everyone, if we are lucky enough to get to an age like that,
Yeah.
chances are you will be disabled.
yeah.
Mhm.
And again, that's what I meant by community is ever changing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm loving this discussion. Sorry.
No worries.
I am loving it. So, how do you feel that previous kinds of feminism have failed women of color?
So previous feminisms, I noticed when looking upon like past feminisms, so we're talking first wave, second wave, third wave, I feel like a lot of them have one main issue to focus on. And I can trace this back to like the women's suffrage age, which like allows women to vote, their right to vote. I felt like it was definitely that was the main message. We want women to vote. We want to be allowed in to elect officials in there. And that was not it was like, yes, it's important for women to vote right now, but I think it was just damaging when you came across certain people who didn't get to those spaces, and other women of color wouldn't be able to vote till like years later down the line. And one of my favorite historical figures is Ida B. Wells. And Ida B. Wells was a women's suffrage activist along with a anti-lynching activist also. And she had a conversation with other white women's suffrage like Susan B. Anthony, who told her when it came to like her group joining into the parades and marches that her group should be sent to the back or worse, don't come at all. Because I believe, or I would like to assume, because Susan B. Anthony is like, I already have these women together for one cause, for the right to women to vote. I don't want them to have to deal with another issue, and that is allowing for Black women or other women of color to be able to vote, because then now that's going to turn into more issues at hand. And I think that's sad that that was the mindset at hand. But once again, it just allows for more of the white women spaces to be very loud and vocal, while the minority tends to be more downer. And it's once again, I feel like they back then didn't really like see that because women's right to vote is also going to allow for more things for women to accomplish, and that can be with the anti-lynching laws. It can also be with like discrimination, deportations, like all those issues that were happening back then, which are still prevalent now. But like I said, past feminisms were only on one thing and one thing only, and we can't have other things because then that's gonna just pile on or take over what our true movement is. And it's like, no, we can have conversations about that. We can totally advocate for more issues from other minorities without still implicating the message to begin with the right for women to vote.
100%. So you've talked about how lots of minority identities were left out of early discussions of feminism. That made me think about how disabled people have often been left out of conversations about feminism. But we can't forget, like, disabled women are women and are therefore important to discussions about feminism and should be included in discussions of intersectionality.
I think what's really telling about this is the fact that disabilities come in many like shapes and sizes. Even me right now wearing glasses is considered a disability, because if I don't have my glasses, I cannot see properly. Therefore, I can't like drive or read certain things without my prescription. In discussion of disability, it also like goes back to healthcare and the access for women to seek help. And if we don't listen to disabled women in those conversations and spaces, I don't think we can also help improve the healthcare system or just better ways understand that we need more policies that are stronger for women to access help.
And then pivoting, can you provide a real world example of why intersectional feminism is necessary?
I think a lot about reproductive rights, because the minority of women, like vulnerable, low income families, really have a hard time accessing the healthcare they need. And maternity rates for Black women are like doubled compared to white women. And that's because doctors don't really consider Black women's pain or take in their consideration. And then that leads to more deaths and other complications. And the reason why intersectional feminism needs to happen is because the healthcare system shouldn't be a place where you die. And for healthcare to not take in consideration of other voices, or even like noticing the difference of pain towards other, or they have to even question one's pain, based on their race is a like very damaging situation to have. So for intersectional feminism to have other voices in these spaces, it just allows for more safety and more communication and connections in that, because once again, it is not okay to have to die in a place where you should be helped with and cared for.
Yeah, I completely agree. Also, I'm so glad you brought up the healthcare system because intersectionality saved lives. And so, to the people that scoff at intersectional feminism, well, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it has real world implications. Like, feminism isn't just like a nebulous topic that kind of impacts the way people live. Like, no, we're talking about with the healthcare system. That's real. That impacts how people, their bodies, that impacts how systematically, like, and institutionally, in a very real sense, people move through the world and the things that they experience. So yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic point.
It was quite wild. One of my friends was studying to get her nursing degree.
Mhm.
And she was telling me she opened her book and she showed me there was a section in there that literally states this is current books,
Oh yikes.
current education,
Mhm.
that Black women do not feel as much pain as other women.
That's so historically racist.
Absolutely not.
No, exactly. Exactly. And so that's why when you brought that up, I'm like, no, thank you. Because this is still going on today. This is
Mhm.
a very real situation. And it's affecting people, it's killing people, it's robbing people of their lives.
No, and that also actually, I think, brings up really important points about whose bodies are studied for
Mhm.
how
Yes.
certain, like, for example, lupus is like a disease that affects people's ability to do things, right? And the majority of people who are studied or have been studied historically medically with how lupus manifests are white European men, which is crazy because the majority of people who lupus affects are people of color and especially women of color.
Yes.
So like, for the populations that are impacted the most by this disease that really affects your body, they're not being the ones studied, and so doctors can't treat you right if they're not studying how the disease actually manifests in a body that is similar to yours. Like, it's not going to work, and it hasn't worked. And so, yeah, lots of like medical studies that have done the same, just studying white men when things show up differently in different bodies. Like, we know that women experience heart attacks differently than men do. And yet the vast majority of like studies of cardiovascular diseases and issues only focus on men.
See, I love my smart bestie because no, I really do, because I studied neuroscience for a very long time.
Mhm.
And she's touching on things that we talked about in our courses.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Look at me go.
No, literally. So that's why I'm like, "Whoo, you go, girl."
Thanks, Queen. All about lupus because of an ex. How would you like to see intersectional feminism play out more in the world and in systems and things like that in the workforce? Because obviously there are barriers to entry to so many different things. And
Mhm.
women of color, disabled women, queer women are going to face so many more obstacles than a straight white cis woman moving through those spaces,
Mhm.
or of course a straight white cis man. What would a future look like without those barriers, and just like what kind of barriers would you like to see removed?
Without those barriers, it would be so beautiful to just see like a group of people from different backgrounds and like everyone being efficient and proactive in their jobs, and never once anyone questioning their abilities or, thinking that they got it because of affirmative action when it's like, no, they are fully qualified with all the credentials and resumes. I just feel like it would be a wonderful place where no one ever has to wonder or struggle and say like, am I good enough or can I fit in this position, or am I the right person for this position? Like, no, everybody has the chance and deserves the ability to be in the workforce because they are qualified, because they are great, because no more should we have people just getting jobs that are due to nepotism or just because of their appearance or namesake. When you have other people allowed in without the barriers preventing them to do so, it just obviously more people can see that they can be capable of doing anything they want to do.
Building off of what we discussed about the workforce, what policies would you like to see be put into place?
Yeah, to help us get to that future. Yeah.
Policies to be in place. I can only imagine that for companies to actively say that we do not discriminate based on race, disabilities, identities, whether gender or sexual, could be a huge step and like actually enforce that. And if companies or people who are working there feel that they don't like really say their word or speak their word on that, definitely take into legal actions to enforce that it happens, because everyone deserves a chance in the workspace and everybody deserves to allow for their like achievements to speak for themselves rather than them as a person. And I feel like it's important, yes, to see people for their identities and who they are, but it's also important to understand that that should not limit them towards bigger positions in the future or taking in leadership roles and even soon wanting to own the company themselves. I would love to see that type of thing happen, but I also think a massive improvement of just like listening and allowing for every voice to be discussed within meetings and conversations, and not shutting anybody out or placing responsibility on certain people because of stereotypes or misconceptions of one's identity. I think that'd be a great start to go forth.
In a legal sense, I think that it's also probably important to have in the courts an understanding of how an intersection of like a certain person's identities could lead to them experiencing, for example, from what I've seen, and I could be wrong, police departments don't contact me to correct me, I don't want to hear from you, but from my research into hate crimes when I was working as a researcher, hate crimes were often classified as one thing, when realistically, for a lot of the victims of these crimes, there may have been intersections of identity, that caused them to be lashed out against. And I think that that is something that would be helpful to have recognized when identifying hate crimes. It's not just like, oh, this person was targeted because this, but also it could have been because of XYZ, which things like that I think would also be helpful in a legal sense, because then it also places a legal importance on recognizing the intersections of an individual's identity and how they move through the world and how systems of discrimination may target them more.
Absolutely. And especially with your background with research with hate crimes,
Yeah.
I can only imagine what you have seen. I can
Oh,
only imagine
yeah.
the things that have been overlooked by the legal system.
Yes, I actually think bringing that up, thank you so much. That made me think about how I worked on creating national reports about the status of hate crimes across the country. So it wasn't just, oh, we're looking at only Los Angeles. Part of the problem, I think, is that so many cities, so many towns, so many police departments don't actually collect those numbers and send them to institutions that are able to like put that data together and learn something from it. They don't do that. There was so much information missing when we were collecting those reports, and I think that that's important for people to know. Yeah, this is a bit of a rant, but police departments do better always.
Lift it tail, lift it tail, lift it tail.
Thank you so much for coming on Revolution Report, Olivia. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed just bantering with you and learning more about your perspective. I think that's so valuable. And what I wanted to ask is, how can people learn more?
So I feel like the simple thing is just listening. Like literally there's nothing else to it. Like listen to women from different backgrounds when understanding like how can I help? How can I amplify? How can I advocate more and speak more to make sure words coming out? Just listen and allow those spaces to have women talk about their experience, talk about what it's like to be a Black woman, talk about what it's like to be disabled, talk about what it's like to be part of the LGBT community. Because I feel like if we don't allow that time dedicated towards them to have the space to speak and have their voice be heard, I feel like we're going to be in this constant loop of just constantly being like, what can we do? Here's what you could do, and nothing gets done about it. And speaking as a Black woman, what I am so tired of is people always saying, like, yes, listen to Black women, but don't expect Black women to constantly come and save you within certain situations. And we're going to hear so much about it with this election now. But literally, it's like Black women are not here to be your strong hero. We're not here to be like the brave souls to put everything on the line. And it's very damaging for Black women to have that mindset that I have to be strong and independent because everybody expect that from me. And but more importantly, it's just like such a damaging mindset to have, because then it like doesn't allow you to heal yourself and allow yourself to feel comfort and softness. But because I think the thing I want to main is that Black women, we don't have to struggle to like make for our cause. We don't have to struggle to get where we have to be. Like struggling should not be part of anyone's journey just to get their point across. And I really hope with intersectional feminism that people will learn that we are not here to be the role model. We are also not here to be anyone's savior. We are here to discuss the issues at hand, and you can help us within our cause. But if you're going to use us as a model and not doing the work to help us in our voices, then what is the point of wanting to advocate and amplify for women of color in these communities if you're just going to gloss that over? Because I'm really tired of that rhetoric saying that Black women will save us all. I don't like that type of responsibility be put on me and others, because then it kind of makes you feel like everybody, like kick your boots off, like lay low, like, don't do anything because Black women are going to come save us. And I really want people to understand that that is not always the case. And you should really evaluate yourself to thinking that a community of women is going to save us, whether if it's elections, whether if it's other policies at hand. Like, that's not okay. Everybody has to have their part in these voices.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of thinking displaces like accountability and movement forward. Yeah, good point. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram via tunes under dash 99. It's lowercase VIATOO and S under dash 99. I just post random stories and other blurs, but I also have a YouTube channel where I just talk about animation. It's my name, Olivia Daniels, and that's pretty much it. And as much as I love to talk about like the advocacy and importance for all of women to like come together, I really think it's important that we also just take consideration to listen to other voices. I am only one person, but it's also important to have other perspectives in the space when talking about intersectional feminism, which I feel like should just be feminism in general, because feminism should equal all, but we will get there at some point.
I love how you circled back to the first. that was brilliant. And with that, good night.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lift it to the tail. Lift it to the tail. Lift it to the tail.
Thank you so much to Olivia for joining us for that discussion. It's important for us to listen to people who have different experiences and perspectives than ours, and we thank her for sharing her thoughts with us.
Ultimately, taking an intersectional approach to feminism means including and fighting for everyone's rights and freedoms, not just your own. As civil rights and women's rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer said, "Nobody's free until everyone's free."
I wanted to recommend a book to any of our listeners interested in learning more about intersectional feminism. It's called Hood Feminism, and it's written by Mickey Kendall. I read it a few years ago, and it really had an impact on how I personally try to approach feminism.
Finally, if you want to learn more about anything we discussed, check out our website at www.handballcourtradio.com. We'll also have on there a link to the playlist we've curated for this program. You can find us on Instagram at Handball Court Radio, and you can find me at Sarah Livings-Walsh. Analisa still doesn't use Instagram.
Nope.
And with that being said, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Analisa Venolia.
I'm Sarah Livings-Walsh, and this has been Revolution Report.
Well, my